We have a number of initiatives just to make sure that developers can create easily dApps that will be focused and optimized for mobile environment. So mostly two initiatives, and I will go over them and just try to explain how it can help you and how we can ensure that dApps just are really optimized and interesting on the mobile environment. So the first initiative we have is Optimized for Status, and it's kind of some evolution of the current web dApps ecosystem. And the other one is, in my opinion, more interesting, and the goal is to go beyond the web, and not just Web3, but just something else. And so this is called extensions. Okay, so first few words around Optimized for Status. So the idea is, well, when you create a dApp, probably you will rely on the Web3 API, which is some JavaScript object that allows you to interact with Ethereum. So we kind of model around this API and try to offer developers status-specific features. So not only accessing Ethereum, not only accessing wallets or creating transactions, but also eventually being able to access status contacts or being able to send a chat message. And so, yeah, the idea is to make this available to any dApp. And if your dApp is optimized for status, once you will run it inside status, it will benefit from those features. So the API itself is loosely based on the Web3 API. So if you are used to the Web3 API, you should be pretty familiar with this. And so it's something pretty recent that we pushed, and we are still interested in feedback from developers. So what kind of features we want to offer. So right now it's still pretty limited, but then it's really depending on what the developer needs are. We will just add a new API. So we have some forum actually, discuss.status.im, and so there are a number of different posts discussing this API. And if you feel like, or if you have some specific needs, well, it's just as simple as discussing this, and eventually we will add those new APIs. Yeah, so it's just a sample to show you that it's pretty simple, and it's essentially just the same thing as the regular Web3 interaction. And so we also have a new documentation website, so docs.status.im, and you can find all the available API and details on how you can use them on this documentation site. And so then what happened inside status? So let's say your dApp will use some status-specific API. So because there is some privacy concern or security concern related to those usages, we don't offer those features directly as is. So you will, as a developer, rely on the API, but then once status will execute your dApp, it will still be up to the end user to accept or not, and to provide the access to these specific features. Because you don't want anyone to access your contacts, for instance, or you don't want any dApp developer to be able to send a chat message through your API. You want to, as a user, you still want to have this control to allow or deny this. So this is the kind of user experience we offer right now. So so this one is specifically for Web3, but for our status API, it will be a little bit more evolved, because then you have different type of permissions. It won't be either everything or nothing. No, it will be a little bit more fine-grained. Okay, so that was pretty much it for the Optimized for Status part. And now another part more interesting, extensions. So what are extensions? So Status is a mobile application, so it's running on your mobile device. So it's fairly optimized for mobile environment. So which means the resource consumption will be different, and the user experience is different. So usually your mobile applications, they are really much more simplistic, and they have a very different just feeling or design at some level. So when you have a dApp running inside Status, you can still see it's a web application. There is a difference between just browsing a web application on a mobile and just using like a regular native mobile application. So that's kind of the idea behind extension, to make sure that there is no difference anymore, both in terms of user experience, but also in terms of performance and just global feeling. So what it means is that actually you will be able as a developer to push code directly running within Status, but not as some kind of foreign website, but just directly within every feature that we provide as a product. You will be able to plug your own logic. So there are some trade-offs here, because then it means there is no clear distinction between like the mobile application Status and dApp. They both kind of become merged. So so it means we have to pay extra attention to security and privacy concerns. So the whole model of extension is really focused first on privacy and security. And it's also focused first on decentralization, because we are talking about decentralized app, so we want them to be decentralized. But then the reality is that most web dApps, they are not really decentralized, because they are still relying either on HTTP servers or DNS. So we want to move away from this. And the last point is that we want anyone to create extensions. Because if you have to create a full web application, it's actually fairly complex. You have to just pick up whatever number of different frameworks for JavaScript and so on. So we try to be very opinionated about what it is to create a dApp, and then we simplify drastically how you can create a dApp. So some potential use cases that really targeting Status. So you could think about some chat commands. So directly when you are chatting with someone, you can execute some logic that will potentially target the person you are talking to. So maybe sending some tokens, or exchanging some collectibles, or swapping something. So really focused on interaction with other people. But you can also think about eventually streaming video directly from within Status, which is not a feature we offer right now, but it could be available as an extension. Or other things, so we have a wallet in Status, and so you can view your different collectibles. So you could also, as the creator of some collectible, you could write an extension that would customize how this particular collectible is displayed inside Status. Or eventually mini dApps, which is a reference to WeChat. So the idea is you just walk around, and maybe you want to go to some restaurant, and then you scan a QR code, and then directly you have some application running based on Ethereum and running within Status as a full application. So this is like a simple diagram just to clarify what is the difference between a dApp and an extension. So the top part here you can see, so we have kind of a schema of how Status is implemented. So there is some native code based on Ethereum, because Status is a full light Ethereum node. And so this is native code, and built on top of that, using like the mobile iOS or Android API, we have a wallet, a chat, and a browser. So all of those are really native, so you get the native experience from those. But then once you browse a dApp, like CryptoKitty, so then you're not in the native world anymore. You are in the old web world. So there is a clear distinction between both, and you will see it. So with the extension, we're trying to move away from this model, and then your code, so like the little pink square, they will run directly within Status and within the particular features of Status. And they will just get all the benefit from this. So there is less distinction between Status and whatever you will write as a developer. So we have a number of principles in mind when we created extensions. And so the first one we already discussed as security and privacy, very, very important for Status in general, and especially in extensions, because it's something remote that you will integrate inside your mobile application. So it's purely database. So there's no code that you will inject inside your Status. It's only some kind of advanced configuration. We know what information will leak to this extension, and we know what this extension is trying to do. So it's necessary to guarantee security and privacy concept. So it's very simple, no build steps, so we don't have to use NPM or whatever kind of building language you will need. Yeah, it's the simplest possible, and then you just load that one configuration file and you get your extension. Because it's very much focused on extending Status and providing small features. It's not like for a full web application. So a bit more details, not so interesting for this talk, but so in Status, we have to decide which part of the application we want to extend. Like if we want to allow developers to create their own commands, so that's something that we have to decide at some point at the Status level. So this is the concept of hook. And one extension can implement several hooks. Like you could create a CryptoKitty extension that will provide the contract address, but also that will provide eventually a particular display for your CryptoKitty. So those are different concepts, and there are different hooks inside Status. So an extension is composed of very few number of concepts, like view. So this is how you display things. Queries, how you access information, and events, how you perform action. Like for instance, if you want to create or send a transaction, an Ethereum transaction. And finally, it's leveraging decentralized storages like Swarm or IPFS. So this is interesting for developers, extension developers. But then as a Status user, then you will access your extension via ENS name. And then Status will dynamically analyze this extension and provide some high-level information to the end user. So you can decide if it makes sense for you to expose this particular information to this extension, or if this extension can perform, can sign transaction or that kind of things. So this is a simple video that will demo just what is an extension. So it's fairly quick, so I will just know. So you can enter an address of an extension, then it will be loaded, you have some metadata, then you install it, and finally, so this is a command extension, so you can see that now there is an extra collectible extension. You will browse, well, it's too quick. But you have a CryptoKitty, so that's something that was not part of Status as a product, but after you load this extension, so here it was based on some specific URL, but then it could be based on a QR code. So you just scan the QR code, and then you get extra features running directly within your Status. And so this is how it looks like, kind of the definition language to create some extensions. So it's hidden, which is a specific data format. But it's very similar to JSON, kind of advanced JSON. So it's only data and then markup and there is some semantic associated to this, and so no code, so safe, and you can analyze this. And if you're interested in just knowing more about this, so you can just go to our docs website. There is a tutorial to create your own extension. Okay, so what do we have in mind behind this? Because it's kind of just the first step. So, well, in my opinion, Web3 and WebDApp are kind of not really adapted to Ethereum. No, it's not really the right model, so we should just restart from scratch. So why is it interesting just for statues? So if you push this model a lot, well, you can consider that everything is an extension, and that status is just a container of extension. So it's really interesting because there is a big problem in the mobile world, which is the dependency on app stores. So if we shrink the mobile application to the maximum, and then you have just this small container, then we don't have to update so frequently the mobile application, and you can just have all the features of your status or other mobile application. There will just be a set of extensions. And those extensions, they are stored on decentralized storages. So then you completely escape like the potential censorship of app stores. And eventually you can also consider that there is no one version of some mobile application. There is no one status anymore. You can just have different versions of status based on different sub-collections of extensions. Something interesting too is because it's based on data, so it's very easy to just create programmatically extensions and to compose them and to reuse subcomponents and so on. So there is a big potential for creating like higher level tooling. Like you can think like designer tools, like stuff like you just drag and drop, and then you can see real Ethereum information flowing, and you can play with it, and then you just publish your extension. So yeah, trying to push in the direction of interacting development. And so it would be a really good fit for Status Desktop, which is Status running on your desktop, because then well, you have more surface place to just create things and see information flowing. So that's pretty much it, but then we are interested in just knowing what kind of things you want to extend within Status. So we already have some list of hooks that we will make available, but then we are potentially, we want to get feedback from developers just to know what kind of things you would think could be extended. But then there is always the conflict of privacy and security, because you don't want to expose users too much. So we want to initiate this discussion well, on our website, discuss.status.im. And yeah, just make sure that you can create the extension you want to create. Thank you.